Kia ora e te whānau, e hukarati ko, Andrew Doubleday aho. The text today is for Sunday the 30th of March 2025. It's Luke chapter 15 verses 1 through to 3 and 11 through to 32. Extremely well known. Now, all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to Jesus. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. Now we move to verse 11. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and travelled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he'd spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his field to feed the pigs. He would have gladly filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he went off and went to his father. But while he was still afar off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now, his older brother was in the field, and when he came and approached the house and heard music and dancing, he called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has got him back safe and sound.' Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him, but he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I've been working like a slave for you, and I've never disobeyed any of your commands. Yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when the son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' Then the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found.'" We think the story is about 2 sons, don't we? And we usually find ourselves identifying with one or the other, or with both. And it is about them. But it's not the primary point I want to suggest that Jesus tells the story. Jesus is here telling us about God. He is wanting to reframe people's understanding of what God is really like. And so this is where the story comes from. Now, how do I know that? Well, the lectionary links the reason for the story and the story itself. Now, remember those first 2 and a bit verses? Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. There it is. The issue is Jesus' behavior is offensive to the scribes and Pharisees because they believe it's offensive, I want to suggest, to God. God would not be in favour of what Jesus is doing it. So he's issuing a corrective, and he tells an outrageous story. It is, my friends, outrageous. Just think about it. Think about this younger of the two sons. And what he does, he goes to the father and he says, I'm done with this hard work. I know that one of these days soon you're going to croak, and when you do, I'm going to get a third of the estate, because that's how it works. I know that my older brother will get 2 parts because he gets the elder son's share, and I'll get 1/3. I want it now. I want to be able to live. I don't like the restrictions that I'm under. Give it to me. Outrageous. Outrageous. You almost think it was potentially a cause for stoning. Imagine if the father had gone to the town's elders and described the story of what his son had said to him. I'd imagine that there would have been a very good possibility that the son would have been stoned. And yet, what happens? I imagine the father pleads with the son. Not because he's concerned about parting with his son's share of the estate, but because he knows what's going to happen to the son. He knows that it's not going to end well. But the son is determined. And it says that he divided his estate between them. I could have imagined that this would have been very difficult, because the one son stayed. The elder son with the larger portion would have stayed, but the younger son, stuff would have had to been sold, maybe mortgages taken out. It would have taken a little bit of time, and it may have meant that both for the father and the elder son, they would have had to work harder for quite a lot longer, just in order to try and keep the whole thing together. So, the younger son gathers up what he has, and he's on his way, and his father's heart breaks for him. And what of the elder son? Well, what we're to discover is that he's not overjoyed about this either. The elder son does not realize the grace that is his, does not realize that the property that is left, everything, actually is his. It's his inheritance. All he sees is the shock of what his younger brother does. All he does is outraged by what his younger brother does. And he's angry with the father for allowing him to do it. And here he is, as he later describes himself, working like a slave, presumably, he thinks, for his father. Nobody's happy. Which brings us to the father and to his response, to what he does. It's the whole point of this parable. And what we have Jesus doing here, I want to suggest, is describing the Father and casting him as a Christ-like God. So many of us, and I'm speaking for myself, in my growing up, even though I would talk long and eloquently and passionately about the love of God, there was a deep part of me that feared that God was really a tyrant. That God was just waiting for me to get it wrong, waiting for me to stuff up, waiting for me to make a mistake and then with a cattle prodder to put me back on track so that I would again walk in the narrow way. The result of sin was always a sense of God's corrective action to make sure that I knew about it. Subsequently, I've encountered people like Julian of Norwich and others who are very clear, and as she puts it, that sin is its own punishment. There are consequences when we do things badly or do things wrong. They have a way of visiting themselves upon us. And it's true for both the younger and the elder brother. The younger son, we see very clearly the consequences for his behavior. He's totally destroyed in the end and impoverished, and returns to his father with his proverbial tail between his legs, but with nothing. He's broken. He's lost everything. He has paid the price for what he has done. This isn't what God did to him. This is what he did to himself. And the same is true for his older brother, for the attitudes that he has, for his lack of vision and lack of understanding of what is actually going on, and the lack of his awareness of the love and the grace that are his from his Father. And so, both these portraits, as a corrective to any punitive view we might have of God. There's a word that's used in this story that I want to focus on now. It's just one word, and I think it's important. There's a Greek word, there's a Greek word, splanknon. It's a noun. And it is translated in the Gospels as, in the King James Version, let's use that version, as bowels. So when Judas, his bowels, his intestines, spilled out onto the field that had been bought, it's that word splanknon, and it has the sense of the deepest part of us emotionally, where we feel the things most deeply, right down in the very pit. And so in the King James Version, as I said, it is fairly consistently translated as bowels. And then there is the verb splanknizomai. And this also refers to this part, but as I say, it's now a verb. And it describes that emotional sense of our insides convulsing, our hearts turning over within us. It's that deepest sense of we have a response to something that moves us profoundly, often with a deep sense of compassion. In Luke chapter 7 we see the story of a widow with her only son who's died. He's been carried along presumably on a gurney, and Jesus looks at her as this dead body is carried by his mother. He's all she had. And Jesus is profoundly moved by the grief and loss of this woman, and it says his heart went out to her. Splanknizomai. This deep sense of his emotional response to this woman. In the Gospel, splanknizomai is only ever used of Jesus or by Jesus, when Jesus is referring to the Father, when Jesus is referring to God, to God's response, to God's reaction. And we see it here in this story. The youngest boy has gone, and the father yearns for him. The father longs for his return. This father grieves, and the father keeps watch. Can imagine him sitting in an upper room looking out down toward the horizon, towards the edge of the property where the road disappears, looking out, and day by day, and days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, and perhaps months turns into year, as the father sits and longs for and yearns for the return of his son. And then one day, as he's watching, he sees this little speck in the far distance, and he watches intently. And before long, he recognizes the physiognomy of his son, that sense that when we see somebody, we recognize them from the way that they walk, the way that they hold themselves, the way that they are in their body. And even in that dejected, bent and broken image, he recognizes his youngest boy. He sees him, and it says, and he had compassion. his heart goes out to him. His heart reaches toward it, turns over inside him. And he's out of the door like a robber's dog. He's down the stairs. He's out down the road running as fast as he can, pulling the skirts of his robes up so he can run the faster, unlike what any dignified older Jewish man is supposed to do. And he runs with joy towards his son, and as he gets to him, he embraces him, and I can imagine the smell is not great. He kisses him, he steps back, his son starts his pretty speech, and his father is not interested. And he calls to his servants, he says, "Bring a robe, bring the best one, put it on him. Put a ring on his finger, get sandals for his feet," and his bare, dirty feet are again shod as the son of a father. And then he says, "And kill the fatted calf, because we're going to celebrate, because the son of mine was dead and is alive, he is lost and is found. Let's party." And that's what they do. And what we see here is the father's longing and response to the son who's returned. He doesn't care that the son has spent everything. All the hard work that they've done has all been flushed away. He's just filled with so much joy that this boy is alive and has come home. What we see here is a reflection of the father's heart. But we know that the story doesn't finish there. Then there's the elder son. He comes in, perhaps he's been out on business or he's been working in the fields all day, and he sees the lights, the house lit up, he hears the noise, the sound of music and dancing. Perhaps he can smell the smells of this amazing food that's coming out. And he asks, "What's going on? What's going on?" And he's told, "Your brother has returned. And your father is just so glad to have him back safe and sound, so he's killed the fatted calf. We're having a party." And the son is outraged. He's angry. He refuses to go in. And the father, who earlier on had rushed down the road to embrace his younger son, comes out and to plead with his elder son. And his elder son is just filled with so much anger, and he says, "This son of yours." And he makes up the story. He says, "You spent all his money on prostitutes, all your money on prostitutes." Now, we don't know whether that happened or not, but that's the narrative he's told himself. And here you are filling the fatted calf. And he's done so much damage, but yet you've embraced him again. And me? I've worked like a slave for you all these years, and you've never even given me a young goat to celebrate with my friends. And you see here the sense of victimhood. And you wonder that all that time that the younger son has been away, whether this has been stirring away and grinding away in the heart of the older brother. And the father again refers to him. He says, "This brother of yours, he was lost and has been found. He was dead and is alive again. We had to celebrate. Come on, come on. Everything that I have is yours. Everything you see around you, everything that you think belongs to me, actually belongs to you. It's all yours. Come on. Exercise a little bit of grace and generosity. Celebrate with us, because the scapegrace brother of yours has come home." This is the heart of the Father. Ultimately, the story is left hanging. We don't know how it ends. We're not told. We're not told whether the elder son put his arm around the father's shoulders and says, I can see him. Goes inside. Maybe reluctantly, maybe willingly. We don't know whether he just takes off and camps down in the corner of the paddock and mopes. We're not told. Ultimately, the story is left hanging. And perhaps that's the best way. There's a kind of unresolvedness about it, and the question is asked, what's he going to do? And it's true of many of us, because many of us see strongly in ourselves the elder son. We've been confronted with the inheritance that is ours, but we've refused to acknowledge it. Of the love and the grace of the Father that is ours, and we've been blind to it and unable to see it. So when it's put before us in this way, how are we going to respond? We mentioned earlier the widow and her dead son in Luke chapter 7. Well, in that same chapter, there's a story of Jesus visiting the house of Simon the Pharisee. He's having dinner with him. And while he's there, there's a woman comes in who's described of having lived a sinful life. And she slips in and she starts to anoint and minister to the feet of Jesus. Simon the Pharisee is not happy. He's not happy. He sits in judgment of this woman and of Jesus. And Jesus' response to him, he says this, I tell you, Simon, her many sins have been forgiven, for she loved much. But the one who has been forgiven little, loves little. I think this is something that we can all bear in mind. That a great felt need for forgiveness almost invariably leads to a greater love response. But for those who have little felt need of forgiveness, what do I need to be forgiven for? There is little to no love response to Jesus and to what he's done. And so we see it in these two brothers. The one who owes much and loves much. And the one who feels more a sense of entitlement and finds the loving difficult. And the Father's heart breaks for both of them. Yearns for both of them. Yearns for you and for me. Amen. God bless you.